Hey folks, Matthew here. I hope you're all doing great. The Howard Ashman video that I've been teasing you for a long time is almost done. It's coming to you next week. Needs just a little more time in the edit. But until then, I've got a bonus video for you this week about all the different actresses who might have played Ursula, who came very close to being Ursula in The Little Mermaid. Of course, it was Pat Carroll, the wonderful Pat Carroll. But it was almost a whole bunch of other people who you have definitely heard of. So going back to the beginning of the Little Mermaid production process, there were a lot of different visions for what Ursula the character would be. One of the people that they modeled it on, a character that they modeled it on, was Joan Collins' character from the show Dynasty. And so a lot of the early versions of the art look like Joan Collins. They look like very fancy and kind of, some of them a bit skeletal, but very thin. And they even wanted, Howard Ashman in particular, wanted Joan Collins to audition for Ursula. But as the story goes, Aaron Spelling, who was one of the showrunners of Dynasty, wouldn't let Joan Collins audition. I don't know what the detail is there, because that seems a little fishy to me, so to speak. I don't know why Aaron Spelling would be the one to make that decision for her. Whatever the case, she never auditioned. Another one of the early frontrunners was Bea Arthur. They actually had in the script that Ursula was a Bea Arthur type. They were really hoping that they could get her to audition for it. Unfortunately, Bea Arthur's agent read that and was so offended that she refused to pass the script along. She did not want her client to play a witch. Okay, so Bea Arthur's out. Now, at that point, they had two more good options, and this is all according to John Musker. They had on the West Coast in LA, they had Charlotte Rae, who you probably know as Mrs. Garrett from The Facts of Life. Would have been a very different take, both on Ursula and also just a very different way of looking at Charlotte Rae playing this character. So they had Charlotte Rae on the West Coast, who they liked, and then on the East Coast, they had Elaine Stritch. Amazing. She would have been an amazing Ursula. So they had both of those women audition and to see what they liked. Now, Howard loved Elaine's take. Elaine Stritch, from a whole bunch of stuff. Company is probably one of her most famous performances. She was also Jack Donaghy's mother on 30 Rock. Anyway, so she auditions, and she is accustomed to making a role her own. She put a lot of her own spin on it. She changed the tempo of the song. She refused to take direction from Howard. And basically they were like, we can't use her. She won't do what we want this character to be. We can't go with Elaine. At the same time, on the West Coast, they had Charlotte Rae singing, and they were like, this is not quite right. I've never heard this audition. I don't know what she sounded like. All they've said is that her voice wasn't right for the part, which I guess I can read between the lines there. She is a very sweet person. I don't think I can recall her ever doing a real villain kind of role. I'm sure she has at some point, but it would have been a more syrupy Ursula. Hello folks, I don't normally do this, but I have to interrupt my own video to point something out. After I recorded this bonus video, James, my partner James, pointed out that Charlotte Rae actually has kind of an interesting take in the pilot episode of The Facts of Life, where she has this way of delivering the line. It's something like, if you're advertising, they must be buying, or something like that. You must be selling. And it actually is kind of like believable as kind of a seductive Ursula character.
What they say, if you're advertising, you must be selling.
Also, I just looked it up, and apparently she's in the movie The Worst Witch, where she sings an extremely fun witchy song. So anyway, links to that in the description. So I guess, yeah, it would have worked. Charlotte Rae, pretty good. So there's a period where they're like, who is going to play this role? And that's when Pat Carroll came along. Pat Carroll was, at that point, probably her most famous role was on The Danny Thomas Show. He played a character called Bunny, I believe, on The Danny Thomas Show.
The way he attacks a plate is like a vacuum cleaner with teeth.
But she was a Broadway actress. She did a whole bunch of great stuff. She was in, on stage, she was in a show called, I think it was called Gertrude Stein, Gertrude Stein, Gertrude Stein. And from that time, there's a very fun interview with Dick Cavett that she does where, I don't know what leads up to this, but she does this very fun, like, hula hoop kind of thing with her, with these flapper beads that she's got on. Anyway, I'll put a link to that in the description if I can find the video on YouTube. Anyway, so Pat Carroll comes in, she does the audition, it's inspired. She later said that she based the character on Maurice Evans doing a Tallulah Bankhead impression. Now, Maurice Evans is Dr. Zaius. He's Samantha's father from Bewitched. And Tallulah Bankhead, of course, grande dame of stage and screen. She's in the Lifeboat.
You know, Tallulah, I really didn't realize that you were so interested in national pastime.
Baby, I am the national pastime.
It's an incredible combination. I try to combine those two people, Maurice Evans and Tallulah Bankhead. But yeah, that's who Ursula is. Pat also said, and maybe this is a little insulting, Pat Carroll also said that one aspect of the Ursula character that she leaned into was she played her as a has-been Shakespearean actress, which, you know, knowing that she's basing it on Maurice and Tallulah, two real actual actors, maybe a little mean of her to say that about Ursula, but whatever. You know what? Tallulah can take it. Anyway, so she's got the part, and so they bring her in, she records everything, she works very closely with Howard, and here's where there's a little bit of a Little Mermaid mystery. Pat Carroll says that there are a lot of aspects of the character, a lot of takes and a little character decision that there's a lot of them that she took from Howard. Like Howard would do the character, Pat Carroll would watch him, and she'd be like, do you mind if I borrow that? And Howard was like, please. And she says that one of those is when Ursula says something like, life's full of tough choices in it. In the script, it was just, isn't it? And Pat says that Howard did it as in it, and she's like, can I use that? And he's like, yes. And so she says that's Howard's innovation. Now, according to John Musker, that's not true. According to him, the director, John Musker, that was actually something that Elaine Stritch did during her audition. And I gotta say, far be it from me to question Pat Carroll's memory of who she got it from. But based on what we know of Elaine's style, they did say that when Elaine Stritch did her audition for Ursula, that she played the character a bit drunkenly. They said that it was kind of like Captain Sparrow is her style of doing it. And given that that's often how she, that's consistent with her demeanor at the time, let's say, I can absolutely see Elaine Stritch coming into the booth and doing in it, like slurring in it together. So I don't know who to believe here. You know, let's say maybe they both did. Maybe Elaine and Howard both did it. Or maybe Howard heard Elaine do it and did it himself, and then Pat picked it up from him. I don't know. It's all a game of telephone. Anyway, the point is she came in, she recorded the lines, and then they had to throw it all out. Because, and you'll be shocked to hear this, of Jeffrey Katzenberg. The first version of Ursula, and they hadn't really settled 100% on the art style yet at this point, the first version of Ursula as drawn and as recorded by Pat Carroll, Jeffrey Katzenberg basically felt was too gross. He said that she was off-putting, that she was revolting, that she was, at that point, the art was a little more witchy. She looked a little more evil and disgusting. And he didn't like that. He wanted Ursula to be a seductress. And, you know, as much as I make fun of Jeffrey Katzenberg's taste, or, you know, his lifelong search for it, I gotta say that does actually sound like the right call, that Ursula needs to be alluring. And so they re-recorded. Pat re-recorded all of it. They settled on an art style for Ursula that was a little bit more, let's say, scenery chewing in a way that is difficult to look away from. And it works. It really does work. Ursula as the evil character who beautifully seduces Ariel, it works. Another thing they did there, and this is a Roy Disney idea, is to keep the Disney evil, like to the visual cues that there's something evil going on here, they played up Flotsam and Jetsam's kind of gross, monstrous look. They took it basically away from Ursula and put it onto her eels, onto her sidekicks. They made them more disgusting so that Ursula could be more beautiful. I think that's an amazing idea, and that's all a Roy Disney innovation. That's at least according to this fantastic book, Disney War, by James Stewart. Not Jimmy Stewart, the actor, by the writer, James Stewart. He wrote this fantastic book called Disney War that has a lot more details. I do recommend it. It's great. The one complaint I have is that the index is terrible. It's a very short index. It's very hard to find anything in this book, so if you're using it for research, it's very frustrating. But the book itself is great. So anyway, Ursula's coming together, the part is working. They auditioned a few other people for other parts that also would have been disastrous. They auditioned Bill Maher for Scuttle. Oof! They auditioned Jim Carrey for Eric. They auditioned Kramer. They auditioned Kramer for Scuttle, which again would have been a very different take. And one last Ursula option, they brought this comedian in to do to voice the chambermaid, Roseanne Barr. And they had Roseanne Barr audition for the chambermaid, and they thought that she was so interesting, they asked her to audition for Ursula. And once again, I've never heard the tapes. I have no idea what it sounded like, but they did say it didn't work. And there is one more person, one final person, I think, who deserves a lot of credit for the development of the Ursula character, and that's Howard's aunt, Anne. So Sarah Ashman, Howard's sister, is written a lot about this. They had this aunt, Anne, who immigrated from Poland. She had a very deep, raspy voice. Sarah compared her to Harvey Fierstein, which certainly is consistent with Ursula. And Sarah has said that that was just the Ursula character reminded her so much of their Aunt Anne. Anne also was involved in illicit business dealings. She ran a business that illegally acquired army vehicles and resold them. So that's the line of work that their aunt was in real life. And apparently, you know, their aunt was, there's a lot of her in Ursula. Would have loved to have met that woman because she sounds fascinating. Anyway, so there you have it. There's some of the behind the scenes on how Ursula came to be and almost was very, very different. If you're enjoying all this stuff that I have in the bonus videos like this, of course, you can always hop on over to the Discord. I share a lot of the stuff as I come up with it, as I discover it in my research. I share it in the behind the scenes channel over on Discord. We're also talking about books over there that we're reading and our hobbies and art and projects that we're working on and stuff, other movies that we're watching and TV shows. So join us over on Discord. Just go to discord.com, just download the Discord app. You should automatically be a member of the server. You can join us right over there. I'd love to hang out with you there. And that'll just about do it for now. Thank you once again for all of your help with this Howard Ashman video. It's been a big one. It's a long time in the works, and I think you're really gonna love it. It's coming to you next week on the 11th. I'm very, very excited for you to see this video. And as always, until next time, I'll see you at Fleckman's.
Welcome to Fleckman's Hotel and Day Camp Filter Room.